creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Erosion of confidence. Shashi Behl. Shashi Behl.
Shashi Behl.
Behl. Why do I always do that?
Shashi Behl.
Shashi Behl.
Yes.
How do I always get that wrong every time I meet you?
I have no idea since we've known each other for what, 20 years?
20
years?
I know. And then you've been in my EO group. You've been a part of everything that I do. And I see you and I just love being with you all the time, but I can't even get your name right.
Well, maybe it has something to do with it. We know we're past first name basis. It's just like, hey, go right into it.
I know. And that's actually the most amazing thing. And having you on this podcast has been actually an honor to have you, because you were one of the most unique women that I have met. One of the most passionate women that I've ever met, and very successful woman that I've ever met. And the whole thing about it is that where you came from, where you are, and where you're going.
Oh, that's such an well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind and a compliment to say, and I appreciate that. But I'm like, why would you say that? I think I'm like everyone else that people run into. But I appreciate you saying that. That's a nice way to start the day.
Yeah, and I appreciate, because what I do is I really appreciate you. And because of, as an entrepreneur, starting off, and I'm going to pull this right into I'm going to pull the card because it's the most unique thing that ever they said. And I don't think anybody's ever heard this before. Woman in business. Is that even a thing?
A woman in business. Well, okay, I kind of walk through this life hoping that one day, the drum that I beat is that one day we never have to say a woman in business or a man in business. We just say, hey, that person is in business, and there should be a qualifier. Until that day, we have to qualify it so that we can bring exposure to those that maybe have less represented voices. But dang, I hope we come to a point where we never have to use a qualifier in front of someone in business or someone in medicine or whatever have you.
So let's still deep into that. So because you hear the woke crowd, we hear everything going on after COVID because it became apparent what's happening out there. And then I see it everywhere about women in business. Oh, women don't get the rights to do this. Women don't get the rights to this. So, and you, like you just said, when does it become not a narrative to say that?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm going to add it on because this is a podcast, but not only a woman in business, I'm a brown woman in business. Let's go. If we're going to go there, let's go there.
Oh, no, totally go there. Yeah.
But your question was, when do we have to not have that narrative? And my answer is always the same when anybody ever asks me that. It's when we actually have a place where it doesn't matter. And privilege from one side or the other doesn't come through. But until that time, and they use the word underrepresented voices for a reason, until that time, if I feel, my opinion is that we have to use those qualifiers. And it's not about me or us or someone at the time. I feel like it's our responsibility, if we are in a leadership role, to be the best we can be, talk about it so that the people behind us that look like us can feel like they can do it. Because I can honestly say, when I was young, I never saw anyone that looked like me that was a CEO or led a company. So, and I'm sure you, on the other hand, saw a lot of people that you identified with and looked like. So it didn't even occur to you that maybe you could not do what you're doing. You didn't know how. And I know you, Kevin, you're like seat of the pants, like I'm going to do it. But it didn't ever occur to you that maybe you couldn't do it, because the doors would always be open for you.
No, and it's interesting because the doors back then and even going today, the doors are definitely open and we see it. And then I look at other situations that I'm in today, and I'll just use this as an example, is that I'll use acting. And not that I'm doing that or anything, but they would actually look for people that are in acting or sorry, actually, I'll even go back. I won't even get into that part. But certain jobs that you have to be a minority, you have to be this, and then we become, on the other side, white privileged.
Yeah.
Okay. So where I'm at here is that we don't get hired because we're not that way. So it's kind of like the pendulum's gone to the other side.
You're right.
So, and I'm not saying that it's good, bad, or indifferent, but it's just like, when does that come back to swing either way, one way or the other? So it's been a very interesting transition. And the original question, when we get into it, is why you are so special in everything that you've done. So a woman of color very successful, and your accolades behind you as an entrepreneur and what you've done have been strictly amazing, especially in the women's organizations.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't think that they're that special. I mean, maybe I'm just too dumb to know that I can't do something. So there's that part of it as well. And we kind of talked about going, sometimes ignorance is bliss too. And I also, as much as I say, I know that there's hardships, I know that doors are not open for a large swath of people. I also do think that we have our own personal responsibility then to say, if the door is not open, well, let's bang it open.
Or as they would
And
say, if the door's not opening, let's build a door and
let's
open
build a
it.
door and open it.
Correct.
Exactly. So that's probably a nicer way. Or look for another door or create your own door, however you want to say it. Yeah, there's always opportunity. And I know I am a glass half full person, not kumbaya, not, I'm going to manifest something, not at all. I just know that I'm capable of doing something. And I also know that I have a spectacular group of people around me that I can ask questions to. So, on one hand, I've never felt that being a woman or being a woman of color has been a detriment. In fact, if anything, it's what makes me unique is also what makes me good. So,
And when was that aha moment for you that you realized you had the power
well,
as being a woman and of color that all of a sudden, wait a second, I can use this to my advantage?
I think I ask a lot of questions, and then the more questions you ask, the more you realize that because for the longest time I thought, oh, there's people know so many more answers than I do, and then I started just asking more questions and trying to listen more. Realize, okay, everybody doesn't know the answer to everything, and that kind of gives me some confidence in going forward. I would say that's probably one of my strengths is the curiosity I have for everyone. And curiosity I find also ends up breaking down barriers. So the more you are curious about someone, it means that you're asking them to talk about themselves. Therefore, the light is no longer on you; it's on the person you're speaking with. And I don't do this strategically. I've just found that it ends up being great. So it's a win-win. The person ends up talking a lot about themselves and feeling really good. And I end up gaining knowledge that I didn't have before I had the conversation. And what a gift that is.
So, building off the curiosity part, is there something that's curious about curiosity when you're asking questions?
Oh, that's interesting. Is there something curious about curiosity? Well, I think curiosity means that you have a thirst for learning. So when I say curiosity, it means gosh, like you're doing something so like I'm going to step it back and go even when I got into this amazing shed, right? It was, "Hey, how you doing?" trying to find about your life. And then we spent 10 minutes just talking about what this was because I'd never seen anything like this. So it opens up a whole spectrum of what a person can do. I had never thought that you could butt up a shed against a house and make a podcast room that looked like this. But I am
The
putting a hot tub in mine.
Yeah, and this was like a yoga studio,
Yeah.
whatever you're looking to do.
Yeah.
Is there any part of the curiosity side of it that you really hone in on, as in for your young entrepreneurs that who work for you, and for mentoring people of color and of women and guys too? And it's the same thing as how do you teach curiosity?
I don't know. You know what? I honestly don't know if it wasn't a skill that I set out to learn. It is innate in me. And how do you teach it? I think you teach it by just asking someone to be a little more humble or you kind of teach a lead. And I'm the type of mentor that is here's how I did it. Very gestalt. Here's in my opinion, here's what worked for me. Now take it into your situation and see if it'll work for you. Because your factors, your perspective, your lens is going to be different.
Now, you just mentioned the word gestalt. Can you explain a little bit about the word gestalt? Because
Well, we all know. Everybody out in EO world, YPO world knows what that word is. It's basically gestalt meaning I'm going to share my experience. I'm not going to tell you what to do, or I'm not going to give you advice, but I'll say when I was in a similar situation, this is what worked for me. So gestalt really is talking to someone in when they ask you a question, but giving them an experience share rather than giving advice.
oh, that is awesome. So, going back to the Gestalt and getting that feeling of advice or, well, not feeling of advice. I'm just going to go, how would you mentor? And one of your mentors that you've had when you were younger, what did you look for in a mentor
Yeah.
when you first started?
So I've had a number of amazing mentors, and all of them have been a big part of why I'm even sitting here right now. It's what I went down this course of always looking for when I had specific issues or problems, I would look to see who was the best in their class in that area. And then I would ask them if they could give me some time, whether that time meant lunch, dinner, breakfast, or a longer extended period of time. One of my people that has really had everything to do is this gentleman named Peter Bradbury. He, when I first approached him, had been the CFO for the Calgary Olympic bid in '88, was the CFO for some big oil and gas company, and he had not never mentored a woman before. And his take was that I knew he'd mentored people. His take was that women didn't have the same he thought they weren't as committed to business, maybe just because of other factors that come into a woman's life. And so I'm like, no, that's not the case for me. I can have kids and I can do business. Just give me a shot. And he did. And he actually ended up mentoring me for 6, 7 years. We'd meet monthly. Amazing. And what I wanted was an acumen around numbers. And every month I felt like had just finished a university class when I was done with him. And that allowed me to propel my business because I could think about it from the hub of numbers and then therefore open up conversations with a number of other people. So it's always been around the curiosity of what I don't know. I'm not interested in talking to people about things I know.
So when you're talking about numbers, so you started your business off. How long ago was that when he first mentored you?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, my first business was my second degree, which means I did not make any money at all. So that was, so he would have been mentoring me about 15 years ago, 18 years ago. Yeah.
And when
He
you look,
started.
and when you think about 15, you go back 15 years ago, and a female and then the mentor, exactly, because you could actually see the narrative that's already been written out there. Because if you go back, it's like watching TV shows 15 years ago today. Whoa, you wouldn't dare have a film made like that ever again from
No,
where,
right?
oh my
Some of
God,
those are cringy, actually.
it's very cringy. And you just go, wow, I can't believe they got away with that back
Yeah.
then. But back to that, the actual, so your mentor going into there and you started your business. So did you realize on the mentorship that you were weak with the numbers
Oh,
going?
100%. 100%. I was already in like so when I approached him, I already had one I founded a business called Twisted Goods, and I had one location already, and I was opening up another in Cadillac Fairview Mall, Market Mall, which is considered an A-list mall. And so that was really going to take the business into seven-figure category by that point. And I knew that I didn't know enough. I wasn't disciplined enough. And so that was when I approached him. And yeah, it was all from a place of if I want to actually go where I want to be in 10 years, this is the area that I need to concentrate on. And I need someone that's going to coach me in that.
So what would you say? And you'd mentioned this about your gifts and abilities was curiosity. And I'm going to go into like what we call as a superpower. And it can't be creative or curiosity. What would be your greatest superpower?
And it can't be creative or curiosity. Oh,
No.
discipline.
Discipline?
Yeah. When I need to get something done, I will consistently and very much with discipline learn it, get it done. Because there is the driving force behind me going, I can't just put something mediocre down because as a woman of color, and if I'm going to present, it's got to be way better than everyone else in the room in order for it to even be looked at. So I have this. That's the thing on my back that I even in our forum group, I always had that where I never came to a forum meeting unprepared.
No, and I can take that experience because I know I would use you in my EO and forum as in social media and having that conversation about and I always use this the things you know that you don't know. I assume I know. But then all of a sudden having that conversation and sitting there with you and getting that aha moment and then you mentoring me to be able to understand what it takes to go to that next level and asking the question without feeling intimidated, without feeling embarrassed. Where a lot of people I found is they're embarrassed to ask that well, I'm in business, I should know this already. Well, I have a successful business, but that's not always true. We need the support of each other to grow. We appreciate our families. We all love our families. We love our friends. But the support group that we have, our mentorship program, especially women of color, and what you've done has changed a lot of people's lives. And with women starting off in business, what is the biggest thing that they need to watch out for? What is their ghost?
Themselves. I would say, and I know that's not the politically correct thing to say, but the question you asked is what is their ghosts or what are our ghosts? It's the imposter syndrome that you're probably feeling or going to feel. And and you said it also too, we're not going to know everything. You don't know what you don't know. So, surround yourself with people that are going to lift you, not bring you down. And success, what does success mean anyways? I mean, we all have a different barometer of what success is. And as soon as you get it, then you're going to be in another class and you're going to still be, I feel like I'm always working to catch up to the next set of people. So I think that's where you go back. Success for me is a great relationship. That's the definition of success for me. And then after that, everything else is, okay, how do we get better? How do we get better? How do we get better? But that's not necessarily success. For me, again, this is just the way I kind of move through life. But back to your question about ghosts, which is a fantastic question. And like I said, I know it's not the politically correct answer but when there's women and young women in business, just do it and don't let yourself get in the way.
And then that self-talk, and I've written blogs about self-talk, and talking to people about, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda, well, I would have should all over myself, and then and not being able to do that. How do you get through that self-talk? That get that little guy over here. Like you see him in the middle there.
Yeah.
That little guy off your
Yeah, what is
shoulder.
that?
That's the self-taught
Oh,
talk. And his idea, this little guy there, was the guy that I would do podcasts and put him on my shoulder and go, if he's gonna say this, I got to say this the opposite. And that became the self-taught because he has his hands out there, and I got him on a crystal ball. Because we need to look at things differently to open up ourselves to curiosity, to open ourselves up, to ask ourselves a better question. And then how do you get rid of that self-talk?
yeah. Yeah, that is a hard one, isn't it? You know, I'm sure we both have the same experience. I've been in 2 forums now in EO, and both of them have been incredible for that. My first forum experience was all about growth, growth, growth. And my second was probably more about personal growth and understanding a very diverse set of people. So I remember when going into all these interviews for the second forum, and I actually wanted a forum where everyone was exactly the opposite of me. Because again, back to curious on how they did what they did, I'm gonna say you, because you were one of those people in the forum, but also fun, they would challenge me, allow me to challenge them, and have great conversations, right? Just lay it out. And so I think I mean, I don't even know what tangent, I got on this tangent, if I'm even answering your question, but it is around curiosity and what that,
And the ghost that
and
we
the
had.
ghosts, yeah.
So now I'm going to get down into a little bit more deeper and just kind of get into this because you're into the retail end of it.
Yeah.
And 15 years into this, and going back from your first mentor, and we just talked about the 15-year cycle, meaning not a cycle, but 15 years, what things were like then to where they are now. Young people coming into the workplace 15 years ago, coming into the workplace today in the market that you're in the retail. How different is it?
Yeah. And it's actually 20. It's going to be, that's
20?
the interesting 20 years in retail. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's different and it's not different. I mean, everybody coming out of university, they've got this piece of paper and they know everything, right? So that hasn't changed. But the fundamental difference is the digital, like this, where there's a whole other pillar in business now that we all have to do, and especially in retail because it's such a visual industry that I live in. And I'm in jewelry, which is even more, it's on the periphery of fashion, so it's even has another visual element to it. And it is all around the digital. I think when you use the word ghosts or shadows, I've been getting into this more and more. The shadow, something that's really, really great, there's always a shadow to everything. So the really, really great piece is that digital can open up businesses. It can open up everything. The shadow to that is that you're always 24/7 in public view. Like everyone now is a public figure. Well, then that can erode confidence as well. So what I am seeing, I feel like what I see more in especially young women, is an erosion of confidence in areas because it's definitely more beauty faced. You're more aware of those things.
So an erosion of confidence.
Yeah.
How would you dig deeper into that?
I would just mean what I mean is that not giving enough merit to the skills that have nothing to do with how you look. And because, again, back to it, this digital medium, you have to be in front of a camera. So therefore, you're forced to concentrate on how you look. And we only have so much bandwidth and so many hours in the day, right? So now if you give X amount of hours, again, this is my own little my own little thesis that I've come up with. But if you give X amount of hours in the day for something like that, you have something else, you lose something else. And maybe it's then the ability to look at numbers, to look at marketing, to look at HR. Think of the other pillars in business and think that the digital is the only, out of the 6 pillars, digital is the only one, and it gets a higher level of concentration. And these other ones kind of fall back on. And then now you get into a room, you get into a boardroom, or you're getting into a committee room, and there everything has equal weight. And that's what I mean by the erosion of confidence. So now you're getting asked questions about numbers and marketing and people and strategy, and you're like, oh, I didn't spend as much time on those things because I was spending it all on here. And that's what I mean. And that's the erosion of confidence, because we all know, like, we get our confidence when we don't want to constantly be curious.
No.
So that's what I mean.
So when we start digging deeper into that, is because your company's in the retail Joy Drop.
Joy drop.
Do you find that it's best to have Joy Drop as a standalone, or is it have Sashi as the front of Joy Drop, meaning building personal brand? And a lot of companies out there, young entrepreneurs, and with the digital age that's coming about, and we just talked a little bit more about that, is that, do you want to brand Sashi or Joy Drop, or brand Kevin Halliday, Spindle Stairs, or somebody else will do this? And it's becoming that self-awareness of entrepreneurs. There's another medium, and we just talked regarding that, and it becomes that personal brand now.
Yeah. That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Is like the balance of that. And I have to admit, because I don't have all the answers. And when I look at that, that's what I'm trying to learn from the people that are coming up in our digital media group at work, because they're so much better at that self promotion. Can I say this? I suck at that for myself. I really do. And you and I have talked about this a little bit. You're much better at it. I don't enjoy it. So therefore...
And remember, I hire that out. And it's kind of like that. One of the things they say, well, if I'm not good, I'm going to hire the best people to bring that in, because I'm terrible at it. But finding the right people.
Yeah. And we do have a digital media, and they're great. They are amazing. And they all say, okay, Shashi, you need to be in front of the camera. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have time right now. So I push it off. So I don't give it priority. Whereas this is where you're smarter than I am. You're giving it priority. You've got the best people around you, and you're giving it priority. I mean, it still takes for me to film for a couple of hours, even though they've scripted it out. They'll say what I need to do. Still have to show up. That's a couple hours of the day. I'd rather be behind the scenes, moving things along, or talking to people, moving things along. So that's my own bad. And I recognize that. The other thing I feel like I can learn, I think where a different generation has it much better than we did, not the pendulum on self-care, but just stopping. And it doesn't have to be 24/7 about work. And that is how I don't, not saying that's right.
But as we go back for the 24/7, because I looked at it as before, prior COVID, everybody worked hard, bing bang boom. We had
Yeah.
to, you put your nose down. Okay, this is what we have to do. We have to do this. Okay, you can't be late. You can't be late. Can't be late. Can't be late. And it just, here you go. COVID hits, good, bad, or indifferent, or whatever companies got started up. But COVID's over. Now all of a sudden it becomes that. Oh, wait a second. I now can actually have time for myself, and I don't feel guilty. And I'm going to tell this customer, or I'm going to tell somebody, you know what? I'm taking Friday off. Oh, okay. It's okay now.
Yeah.
It became a whole, whoa.
Did it ever, right? Which is really, it's good because we need that time to rest our brain so we can think a little bit deeper about other things. But I'm going to go back. I know that I'm off tangent, but the question around the differences in the younger, in new upcoming, I'll just end it with it. There's differences, but they're the same. It's just the differences now are around us catching up in the digital way, I would say.
The older people catching up?
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
Us
Us
older
older
people.
people.
And I find, and that is true because we're getting into, yes, the digital age, and then, but as for young people and their mindset versus when, from going before, do you find their mindsets a little bit different? People's minds are, not their mind, but I guess and it's not a motivation, it's just their internal clock, where they're at today, and oh, the woe me, the
Yeah.
poor me. And I don't know if that is an issue, or is it just because I'm older and I think that's a
Yeah,
problem?
and I've been looking at that and going, is it maybe it's just maybe I think it's more of different value system, right, than we grew up with, which is where going maybe both parties can learn from each other. But I would just say when I look at my workforce, they value things different in a different way than I value, and they prioritize. Like they will prioritize. I've got teams that will prioritize their rest, and I think that's the part where I go, like, hey, that is good because I didn't do that 20 years ago. And there's ramifications of that. And maybe they'll look back 20 years up and there'll be ramifications of. But I don't put it down as, I've heard a lot about just lazy or they don't work as hard. And I'm kind of been trying to reframe it and say, I think the priorities are different.
Right, and it's not as important to put in 15 hours
Yeah.
versus I'm going to put in my best. It doesn't take me 12 hours to do 8 hours
Yeah.
worth of work.
Yeah. Saying that though, when you look at the GDP, when we hear now what's happening, what Canada's productivity levels are lowering at a rate that's starting where economists are starting to worry about what will happen for Canada in the next 20, 30 years. It's another discussion, broader. And that may fall into the question you've just asked. And then the other thing, I just heard this, and this was startling and sort of sad for me, is that we are now in a time where the least amount of people are starting businesses, real businesses. And that is actually a fundamental groundwork for a country, is small SMEs.
And what's interesting with that as well is with companies not be as an entrepreneur starting up, but how many companies are for sale? And I don't mean for sale that you say buy them, because as the older generation, they
Yeah.
don't have anyone to purchase them. They don't have
Yeah.
anyone to take over. Their kids are doing this, and all of a sudden, that craftsman of whatever you're doing and great at becomes lost
Such a good
in
point.
in the whole proverbial of society. So
Yeah, such a good point.
that is awesome. Well, you know what, Sashi? Thank you very much for being on Shed Talk, and we're going to have many more conversations. And thanks for coming out.
Thank you for asking me to join. This was a blast.
Thank you. Now you know. Shed Talk.